Episode 26, the Doomsday. Now for the final episode. Robotnik says that in 24 hours he'll control every inch of the planet. And he presses a button. There's rumbling that scares Snively, and Rotor tells Sonic to throw a bomb at some scrap metal. Why did it take him this long to make exploding green gas bombs? He could have had Sonic and friends using these the whole series so they'd be able to defeat robots. Rotor takes forever to make the best of inventions, and for no real reason. It's not just that they're the best of inventions, they're the basic inventions I'd expect the heroes to have from the beginning of the series. Sonic unfortunately saves Antoine when he falls out of a tree, and the ground opens up beneath him and a flying machine, the Doomsday pod, goes out of it and shoots some lasers at the nature. Antoine sounds the not-full alarm, so could somebody other than him have done that? Rotor complains that the pod is a week early as it starts to attack Knothole, creating smoke everywhere. Sonic gets Rotor out of the workshop as it's destroyed. This is definitely increasing the stakes. It makes sense one of Robotnik's machines would stumble upon Knothole eventually. It's not like it's in a different zone. But Sonic destroys the thing with one bomb. That was anticlimactic. At least have multiple bombs be thrown. Nicole shows Sally the internal schematics of the Doomsday machine that they took from Robotnik. The machine can release hundreds of pods every hour. Sonic's worried that there's already hundreds out there, and they're shown leaders of the Southern and Eastern freedom fighters. Down Under and the Dragon Kingdom? How far did they travel to go meet Sally? Since a direct assault would be too risky, Sally goes for a different plan. Dulcie flies with Lupe on her back, and the heroes go out of a flying machine, and Sally does a countdown. Some heroes jump out of the green flying machine with parachutes, but their confusing appearance reveals that they're a dummy diversion, which Robotnik figures out since some of them are close to his cameras. Sonic throws a bomb to get them into the machine, and Robotnik says there's a trap. Snively calls him an idiot. Lupe is immediately caught because she and her group aren't allowed to be useful. And the heroes lampshade that Antoine trips too much. Why the hell did they bring him along on such an important mission? They see some flying electrified machines with Robotnik's laugh, and they burn Sonic when he jumps over them. Wow, that's a dark sentence. Sally warns Sonic that they're sensing his motion. How would she know that? She didn't ask Nicole. He runs away and ends up having electricity surrounding him, and says that he knows how a bug zapper feels. But in the very next scene, he's perfectly fine with no consequences at all, despite being burned and electrocuted. Why would the electricity continue being there after he was electrocuted? And rings work differently from how they do in the games in this show. So you think if the ring was what kept him from being injured, it would have been used up on him. Sonic wants to go on his own, telling Sally and her friends to get out of here, riding a pod, even though he's risking their lives. Robotnik tells Snively to let them go because he just wants the hedgehog, and Snively opens the skylight and lets Robotnik go up above him and has a bad feeling about his plan. As Sonic walks along, he's given Nicole, who amusingly calls Babe, and she shows him the main control room.
No prob. You are here, my main hedgehog. You got it.
I always love it when Sonic holds Nicole for a change. In fact, I wish he was always the one with Nicole, because he makes her have kind of good dialogue. I mean, she does try too hard to imitate his slang and it doesn't suit her, but she still sounds like a person, finally. And I like that they have an actual dynamic, because she is affected by his personality by changing her behavior around him. Sonic uses bombs to damage the Doomsday machine, but then he gets nervous and Robotnik shows up, bragging about the diamond glass dome.
It stinks, Robotnik!
Does it indeed?
Then Sonic is sucked up into a tube that comes out behind him, and Robotnik confronts him when he's trapped in a pod. Sonic, just create a tornado to get out of there. Why are you standing there like an idiot? It's a roboticizing pod. No way they'd have the guts to do that to Sonic. Can't he, like, spin dash under the ground or under the floor to get out of there? Sonic uses a ring to fight back against the roboticizing being. Robotnik designed the roboticizer just for him. Then it turns out Sonic actually had 2 extra rings out of complete nowhere with no foreshadowing, letting him break free. We could have seen multiple rings in his backpack earlier. This is just as bad as the comic suddenly giving him all the 7 Chaos Emeralds out of nowhere in The Lizard of Oz. Sonic gives his friends the bad news. Sally for some reason hugs him and says he did his best when he was a complete failure. Well, that is a nice change of pace from her usual treatment. And Chuck tells them that they have one last possibility. Sonic could take away Robotnik's Power Stone and use his own with it. He feels impatient with Nicole and she tells him to just chill because he's stressing her.
Just chill, Sonic. You're stressing me.
He looks through a vault, she tells him to back it up,
Sonic, stop, back it up.
and he finds the Power Stone. Sally sees where the pod is and says to Sonic that they have a plan.
Chill here, Sonic.
Sally plans to go with Sonic, saying that she and him are in this together, when logically you think it would be Bunny going with him since she's the second most, well maybe third most competent of the group, but oh, she's popular. She's just as popular as Sonic, so better logic. He kisses her hand and they see a pod going along the train track. Sonic throws a gas bomb at it. I like that they caught from it, showing consequences to them using that kind of thing, though not consequences enough that they would have to go to the hospital at all. Sally wonders if the explosion would destroy the whole planet and not just Doomsday. Sonic just now comes up with the idea to just use the Power Stones the other way. I thought that was the plan because the different way would be too dangerous. Nicole says that the Power Stones are 10,000 times as powerful as rings. For some reason, Sonic and Sally don't use the Power Stones instantly just because the machines don't threaten them, but fortunately they do get a chance to fuse them, as the machines stupidly just tell them to obey and complain. Sonic and Sally are surrounded in a white bubble and basically go super. Sonic runs all over the place, running in the air, damaging the base, as if they've gone super in a creative way that doesn't involve the Chaos Emeralds, but feels a little more cheap because, I don't know, it's just 2 stones that they're fusing together. It's not like they got 7 stones. Snarly complains that Robotnik doesn't give him enough credit. Can he just kill him off like in the comic already? That'd make for a fantastic ending. But no, even if he was killed off, it wouldn't be permanent. He goes into the elevator as Lupe runs away from the white light the heroes created and escapes into a pod that he made just in case he would be threatened like this. The machine in the area surrounding it vanishes in a white light and Sally and Sonic land. They also are surrounded by a white light as Robotnik was taken into the void, apparently. Surprisingly, Sonic doesn't want Sally to kiss her, even though he just kissed her hand and he wanted to impress her in the first episode. Sonic reveals that he thinks Robotnik's been taken care of. Really? That easily? I guess that was what us seeing Robotnik flashing constantly was supposed to mean. Reality ensues that Sonic is kind of disappointed because with the villain defeated, what's a hero supposed to do? But he's still smiling though. Snively gets out of the elevator, wearing a purple cape and talking a lot more menacingly as he brags that he let Sonic defeat Robotnik, and now it's his and Ixis' turn. Well, I assume it's Ixis anyways. It sounds like a red-eyed guard dog, and I heard that Season 3 was supposed to have Ixis as the main villain because fuck letting Snively ever be the main villain at any point, ever. It really is a shame because Snively was entertaining as a villain mostly because of his hammy dialogue and no-brainer, but if it was a comic that continued this, there wouldn't actually be any voice acting for him. So apparently that was a cliffhanger, which only makes me wish that Robotnik was gotten rid of last season because the show was cancelled just when it would have gotten really good, with Snively and Ixis as the new villains. I wonder if the reason the show was cancelled was that executives hated the idea of Robotnik not being in a Sonic continuity and canon, because God forbid that would be different from the games. Well actually, it was because Disney took over ABC, which is a TV channel I never heard of as a Canadian. But still, the cliffhanger wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, because aside from Snively and Ixis being new threats at the very end, everything in the episode was resolved properly. Sonic and Sally used the Power Stones that were foreshadowed properly by being mentioned in an earlier episode to basically go super and destroy Robotnik's Doomsday machine, which unfortunately didn't make it clear what he planned to do with it since he said he was going to rule every inch of the planet thanks to it when all those pods did was damage nature. The Ultimate Annihilator was way better of an epic final plot for Robotnik, as it was going to get rid of every living thing and leave only Robians for him to rule over, while this felt like just a generic plot of his, amount of pods aside. I mean, I guess getting rid of every living thing was the same eventual result of all those pods, but like all of those pods weren't really properly... Well, I guess the Doomsday Machine was destroyed before it could release most of those hundreds of pods in the first place, because otherwise the heroes wouldn't really be celebrating and would still be panicking at all the nature destroyers being roaming around. I was wondering if Uncle Chuck would lose his free will in this episode, but maybe that clip I saw of him losing or being roboticized was from Adventure Sonic the Hedgehog. Or maybe not. I have a feeling none of the Freedom Fighters or Sonic's uncle are in that show, because it's the comedy relief show, and thus it's the safe show. And this wouldn't have the guts to have non-game characters play huge heroic roles when it's all about Sonic and Tails. I don't know, I'll see. But yeah, it was a good episode. I wish that, well, one, the show had gone on for another season, but two, it was made a lot more clear that Robotnik was sent to the void when the heroes went super, since there was no indication that that would happen, that they had a void portal. We saw him complaining, sure, but it's not like an Archie where he just disappeared and we saw it happen. So is Robotnik in the place that they made disappear? I guess so. It feels so anticlimactic because it's so confusing, compared to the comic where Sonic and Robotnik thought they would both die anyways, and so they get to a dragged out one-on-one fight, letting out all of their hatred for each other, and that helps make it feel climactic when Robotnik gets erased by Snively. Oh yeah, and it was tense that one of the pods found Knothole and destroyed Rotor's workshop, but whatever, I forgot about it for a reason. Sonic destroyed it with one gas bomb. A gas bomb that Rotor was pathetic for not making by the first episode, letting Sonic and friends actually destroy robots. Nobody got hurt or killed, like Antoine, so it doesn't really matter that his workshop was destroyed. It found Knothole out of complete nowhere, and while Knothole was discovered, Robotnik wasn't told where it was, and he didn't target it specifically with a nuke or go there himself, like Penders wrote him to do in the Endgame saga, which was multiple stories in a row, by the way, not just one episode for a big rushed finale that didn't really feel big. It's not like Robotnik was going to use a world roboticizer. Hey, at least he never came up with portable roboticizer beans, which was stupid overpowered. So that was SatAm. Antoine was extremely annoying, wasting space in all the episodes with his cowardice and arrogance, to the point where I could understand if you hated the show for him alone. Sally, at least mostly in the first season, treated Sonic like an idiot, being condescending, and was reluctant to thank him or acknowledge him, which annoyed me a lot, though at least she was toned down in season 2. Dulcie was actually pretty great because she was useful, even if the slapstick was dumb. And I liked her sass. And Rotor was put out of focus with Bunny when if Antoine should have gotten that fate, and Bunny should have been much more in focus because of her powers. And we barely had any focus on villains other than Robotnik and Snively, with just one episode with Ixis in it and a few episodes with well-intentioned villains. Hell, my favorite episode is the one where Snively was the main villain. The show does have a time travel story arc, building the history for the show, showing what it was like before Robotnik, but it doesn't do enough to add original characters, which doesn't feel that gutsy since I'm invested and engaged whenever I see them add to the SatAm world that way. And speaking of not gutsy, well, this was just a season 1 thing, but by the time they bothered to have basic continuity, it was already too late. There's so many dropped plot threads as a result of this, and that's worse than in the comic because I expect there's no continuity whatsoever in season 1. It might as well have been completely non-canon. At least the comic always had continuity, even when it dropped plot threads. What happened to that Sally duplicate that turned on Robotnik? Where's the secret scrolls? Why is it that when Robotnik's power generators were destroyed, he still had power and was fine in the next episode? I guess we'll never know, so the second season having continuity doesn't make up for it because it could have taken those dropped plot threads and resolved them. A show like this can't work without continuity because it makes the heroes' its accomplishments worthless in a show about the heroes making their way bit by bit to defeating Robotnik. This is a show taking itself seriously, but it needs continuity for that. Speaking of plot threads, that cliffhanger. It sucks that Snively and Ixis weren't the villains to start with, let alone season 2. They go through all this trouble of making an original villain, and he's wasted as Robotnik's lackey. At that point, you might as well have had Robotnik Cubot. But it's not as bad as it could be. When I thought of Cliffhanger, I thought the episode's Doomsday machine would come close to succeeding and the episode would end before we get to see it get destroyed. But the heroes succeed just fine. Chuck is just fine. Also, the other freedom fighter groups like Lupe and Eri get captured and escape, having no personalities and being totally useless and uninteresting. Another problem with the finale. Even the comic did other freedom fighters better. I'm also disappointed that even though Sally saved Rosie, we never see her again past the episode where she's revealed to be fine in the present day. So much for that. I don't know, I admire the fact that we have one Sonic cartoon that takes itself seriously. But the show has a lot of problems nagging me about it, mostly just Antoine. While the general episode quality is pretty consistently good, although there are plenty of badly written episodes, especially in Season 1, Antoine sucks the major big one, which is honestly the biggest problem with the show. He's there to force comedy, but there's not a single time when the show made me laugh when I was watching it, and he barely contributed anything. I think other characters could have done what he did just fine. Hell, I would have taken Fiona Fox over him, or Jeffrey. Antoine might have worked better as a villain, since he's unlikable, arrogant, and cowardly to the same extent as Snively. But instead he wasn't, and it keeps the show from being truly excellent. Like, he would have been better if he was basically more like Jeffrey. I'm really glad I watched the whole show finally, but I would have enjoyed it a lot more if he wasn't in it. There's so much boring filler in the show, dragging the pacing to a screeching halt. Although, the fact that I'm impatient doesn't help. I think part of the problem is that since the TV show has more runtime instead of the limited space of a comic book, there's more time in each episode, and so they have to pad it out. So Antoine is what pads it out, which is why he's more annoying in the Wolfpack episode in Ghostbusted. And that's why I'm really glad that there's a comic book for this. And I don't mean the Archie Sonic comic. That's right, there's a fan comic about the show, which details how Season 3 might have gone. So I'm going to be moving on to that. Fortunately, it seems like there's a lot of issues in that. It ran for several years. And it's a comic, which means less space for filler, like Antoine being a wuss. How did I not know about this? I'm so glad I scrolled down the comments on one of the episode videos and found this for myself.